Yo, over 10% of all watches sold in the United States around the 60s and 70s came out of St. Croix. Yeah, I talking Timex, Hampden, Hamilton, Belair, Unitime, and even gold timepieces like Jules Jürgensen. Yeah. Now, did you also know that the Soviet Union sneaked in to a shell company in St. Thomas and they did the same? They even undercut Timex to get a big contract. Anyways, yo, you don't know. I want to check this out. Irie. So, done. We gotta go back a little bit to around 1959, where there's alleged that the first pioneers, called the Standard Time Corporations, realized something crazy. There was a loophole in a custom law, Headnote 3A, which basically states that if you assembled watches in the US insular territory and kept foreign components under a certain share of the finished value, you could import parts basically from Switzerland, France, Germany, etc. and beyond, put them together in St. Croix and ship them to the US completely duty-free. Now, we know the word tariff nowadays, right? Well, this is how you beat tariff. Hey, just in case, we still here. How come? Anyways, once that secret got out, listen, floodgates open. By the late 60s and early 70s, it is said that close to 20 watch assembly facilities were running on St. Croix. Yeah, in a place like Estate Diamond, Peter's Rest, Christiansted, they were pushing over 4 million watch movements a year. Yup. And it had real impact, right? This helped drive the Crucian middle class. Now, when I say help, we had Harvey Aluminum, we had Hess going at this time, and now local women were finding a place, because this was heavily driven by local women. It is said that they had the patience to do this. Mind you, you sitting in a clean room, looking through a microscope, or fine little tweezers, placing tiny balance wheels, hairsprings, and jewels to make a watch. Yes, but they also took home a steady paycheck. They bought houses. They put their children through college. Like, this helped transform our island's economy after the sugar era faded. I convinced that these was the golden years of St. Croix, after all the history. Now, remember the Soviet Union part I talked about? Well, the Soviet Union quietly exploited this exact same loophole. They had a Panamanian shell company set up their own watch plants over in St. Thomas. And they assembled their watches with Soviet-made products. But they would do it under sneaky sounding brand names like Sussex or Cornavin. They actually undercut Timex on price, and they landed a massive contract with Kmart. This actually sparked a real fight in Congress before lawmakers cracked down on it in 1979. A wild Cold War subplot that was playing right out in our backyards. That's pretty cool. Anyways, so what happened to the whole watch empire? Well, the quartz revolution. Jacko, what I mean? Well, that's basically when they replaced mechanical gears with cheap battery chips that was made in Asia. Trade competition and shifting global markets help also fade away what was once as a dominant job market on St. Croix. But it didn't all just die out in the 80s and 90s. Some of them actually stayed, that were actually backed by federal subsidiaries. So Crucian watch assembly actually survived decades longer. Not all of them, but they did survive. Some lasted longer than others. Now, the next time though, you see a vintage watch that is marked Virgin Islands or St. Croix, now you can remember, we weren't just keeping the island time, man. We were keeping the time of the entire nation. Anyways, y'all be safe, eh? Catch you on the next one.